This meeting of the Anderson Township Board of Zoning Appeals is hereby called to order. This board was established pursuant to Section 519.13 of the Ohio Revised Code by the Anderson Township trustees to provide administrative relief to any person or entity adversely affected by the Anderson Township zoning resolution. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Rick Overschmidt.
Here.
Brian Ellis.
Here.
Steve Haber.
Here.
Fred Hayes.
Here.
Brian Sanders.
Here.
Thank you for coming to this meeting. Please be aware this meeting is audio and videotaped and may be carried live on our local cable television. Our procedures are that the summary of the appeal is presented by the staff, and then the appellant has the opportunity to present its case. The board members may then ask questions of the appellant. After that, all other persons supporting the appeal will be permitted to testify one at a time after being recognized by the chair. When those persons supporting the appeal are finished, those opposed to the appeal will then be permitted to testify and/or ask questions after being recognized by the chair. All persons wishing to testify, whether for or against an appeal, may do so only after being sworn in. When testifying, please come forward to the podium, speak into the microphone, and state your name, address, and affiliation to the case. We would like to hear only new, non-repetitive evidence or questions. Now, if you may give testimony or speak this evening, would you please stand? If both of you, if you're going to want to say anything, please stand up. Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Any changes to tonight's agenda?
No.
All right. Approval of minutes. We have November 6th.
I did receive a few comments from
Comments?
Mr. Hayes that were made.
We all saw those. Any other changes? I thought they were well done. Entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the minutes of the November 6, 2013 meeting as amended.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, case 24-213, BZA, 7655 Clough Pike. Would the staff please give us a summary of this case?
Sure. This area is, yes.
Should I need to abstain. I did not second or.
Yeah, we'll note you as abstaining on
On the
I
minutes.
wasn't here.
You were not here.
I'll abstain also, I wasn't here either.
Okay.
Thank you.
So case 24-2013 BZA is 7655 Clough Pike. This area is zoned B residence, and the request is to allow a camper to be located in the side of the front yard area where it's normally required to be located within the rear yard. Here's a location map. You can see our subject property outlined in red here. All of the surrounding zoning is B residence. To the south here is the location of the new Foxbrook Place subdivision. An aerial photo of the site. Some of this vegetation in this area has been removed as part of the redevelopment of the Foxbrook Place subdivision. A topography map just showing there is a drastic change in elevation as you get closer and closer to Clough Pike here. But the site of the home as well as the rear and side yards do kind of level out. This is the proposed site plan. So the applicant is proposing to locate a parking pad for the purposes of parking their camper in the side of the front yard area here in the summer months. Previous zoning history on the site is that a permit was issued in 2000 to repair a split rail fence that was damaged by a vehicle, but no other zoning information is on file for this property. The property itself is approximately 2.97 acres and has about 250 feet of frontage on Clough Pike. It's a single-family home, and as I stated before, there is a sharp change in grade here at the northern end of the property. Surrounding uses are predominantly single-family residence. Again, the Foxbrook Place subdivision is to the south, and Clough United Methodist Church is to the west here. So staff finds that this variance is not substantial. The side yard of the property is located directly adjacent to this panhandle leading back to the Foxbrook Place subdivision, which is not being proposed to be used as a drive. It is just going to be for the location of utilities if necessary there. But other than that, there will be no residence or driveway located in this area. The adjacent neighbor to the east may be able to view the camper from their property, but it will be located a considerable distance further away from their home than if it were to be located in the rear yard as required by the zoning resolution. Here we see some surrounding photos of the property. My apologies for going out the day that it snowed. But you can see here, looking south from the end of the driveway, you see that it is very clear, and you do have a clear view back to the Foxbrook Place subdivision, which is currently under construction. So at a point in the near future, single-family homes will be located in this area. The photo to the left of that is looking west from the driveway at the approximate location of the parking pad, and you can see the wooded area there. The two photos on top are looking southwest, both from the end of the driveway as well as about halfway up the driveway at the approximate location of the parking area. So the essential character of the neighborhood would not be substantially altered, and adjoining properties would not suffer substantial detriment as a result of this variance. The development and the new homes at Foxbrook Place would be able to view the camper if it were parked in the rear yard location as required by the zoning resolution. By locating it in the side of the front yard, it will be further removed from the view of these residences. The variance will not adversely affect the delivery of government services, and the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement will be observed and justice done by granting the variance. The side of the front yard property is not visible from adjacent properties or the roadway of Clough Pike. Other items that the board may consider in this decision on the case are that the surface of the parking pad and the screening of the camper. Parking surface materials are not specified within this application. However, the zoning resolution requires parking areas to be a hard dust-free surface such as concrete or asphalt as opposed to gravel. And in addition, a landscape plan was not included with this application.
Questions for staff?
Where does the, can you go back, Allison, to the, that's a good one. That one there is good. Where does the rear yard start?
At the back corner of the house.
Back corner of the
So
house?
from here, south.
And so if they put it back there, it could be anywhere behind that house?
It could be
right?
anywhere behind that, yes.
Is there any property line setback, like 5 feet from that adjoining property or anything?
No, we do not have any.
So it could be right there.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a shot of it from where the camper's going to be parked? That helps, actually, looking, I guess that's eastward. I saw west, southwest, but I didn't see anything east, looking east from there. You'll have a chance just a second, yeah. I mean like a ground shot.
Oh, no, we do not.
Thank you.
Questions for the staff?
Not now.
Just one. If, as a matter of right, they park the camper behind the residence, it would have to be on a paved surface?
No, it would not.
It would not?
Yeah.
So it could be parked behind? Okay.
And I guess further to that point, had the same line of thinking. And again, the rear of the house starts from the back corner by definition per our zoning ordinance. And as I understand it, in a general sense, boats, campers, all of the sort in our township can be parked in the rear of the yard not on a padded
Correct.
surface.
So you're saying that hard, dust-free surface
Is-
doesn't apply when it's behind the house?
Correct. If it's behind the house, it could not be parked on gravel, but it could be on the grass there.
Gotcha, okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay, any other questions for staff?
None here.
Would the applicant like to come forward and please come to the microphone, state your name and address, and tell us some more about this situation.
Terry Childs, Donna Jean owns the property. We're married. It's at 7655 Clough Pike. And what we're trying to do is that one picture you had of the topographical of the new, no,
With the subdivision.
yeah. This, we're planning to put this on a hard concrete pad. And it would be offset behind, there's a large Colorado blue spruce sitting there. And it's almost directly in line where the property owner next to us wouldn't be looking straight at this camper. It would be for the summer months. We bring it there 8 or 10 times a year to camp with it. I belong to a shooting club, we go with it all the time. And taking it to my house over in the north part of the township and parking it over there and then bringing it back, it's just a lot of hassle. But I want to put in a concrete pad, and then there'd be a gravel driveway that grass would grow back through this. And all you would have would be the concrete pad, and we plan to put fir trees around that. It would be there just in the summertime. In the wintertime, it's stored over at my house on Pastoral Lane in north part of the area. I went with this idea compared to going behind the house because there is nothing, and only one person could probably see this. And the idea of putting it behind the house, they're building a new subdivision. Those houses are starting at $700,000. And I just don't think they want to look at a camper. And that was my whole idea. We're sitting on almost 3 acres of ground up there, and all it is grass. And I couldn't see any reason why this would be a big problem for anybody. Because when we're ready to go camping, we pull it up right by the house, load it up, go camping, come back. It's usually on a weekend, sometimes it's a week. But it's a 35-foot fifth wheel. And it's not a piece of junk to look at. I mean, it's a nice unit. It's a newer one. So that was why we decided about doing this as compared to going behind the house, because there's probably a lot of room behind the house, but to get to it's one problem, and then sticking it right in the new neighbor's yard. Behind the house to the property line, there's about 60 or 70 feet. And it'd basically be up pretty close to their property line. And where that one detention pond is there is pretty much right behind where we would put it. So that's
Thank you.
about as good as I can tell you.
You might stay up there for a second. We might have a few questions for you, if that's all right. Questions for our applicant? Fred?
Yes, sir, have you talked with the builder back there? Or is there a new property owner, or is it still the builder?
It's Zicka Homes is a builder back there. And I've talked with some of the people that's been doing the work. I've talked to Mike Zicka and Joe. He's got a name that I can't remember.
Ferrugio.
Oh, yeah, there you go. So I talked to them, but I didn't think it was a place to put a camper. When you're spending that kind of money on a house, and you don't want to, and they're going to, from what I understand, they're going to be walkouts and have patios and that in the back. It's not something that they want to look at, is the back end of a camper. And that was one of the biggest considerations that I could see when we had all the rest of this property that you cannot even see from Clough Pike. And I realized why they have this parking behind the house line for campers. If you're in a subdivision, you don't want to sit in somebody's driveway on the street. So this is just, all it is a big grass yard.
I understand, I've seen the property, and so there's no real preference one way or another from the builder. How about the neighbor next door?
We don't talk. Maybe you guys know all about that situation. I know, I've talked to Barb, and I think Allison knows about it. I
I believe we received an email from them.
Yeah, He's had the idea that he owned property that he didn't own, and when we finally had our property line checked, he found out he lost about 4 feet of his driveway. And the other thing that happened to it, he immediately, instead of talking to us, went for a lawyer. And if he would have just said something to Jean, she would have given him the property line. She offered him a permanent easement. He wouldn't go for that. All he wants to do is fight me and my attorney, and the sheriff said I shouldn't do that. Now, he's called me a coward twice from this, and I'm not about ready to buy that one more time. I spent 30 years as a firefighter, and coward ain't part of it. So, but we don't speak. That's the way I keep away from having a problem with him.
All right.
You mentioned earlier, you discussed a concrete pad, and I heard you say gravel, the grass would grow over. I didn't follow that.
I don't really want a road showing out through there, so if I just put the gravel in and then bring the dirt back across it, I could run a camper out onto the pad and just be that pad sitting out in there, in the gravel, and all you'd have is grass. I mean, you just need a hard surface you don't sink in, and that would be the thing that I would do.
How far away from the driveway will the pad be?
I think I had a drawing, I had a measurement on there. I would say it's probably going to be a good 60 feet. And from the far property line, it's about 200, or it was 180 feet. I measured that off. And from the front road line, it was 300 feet. And the back was 208. And it's off of that wooded easement there. It's about 30 feet away from that, because there's power lines for our property coming up that way. So it's, especially in the summertime when it's going to be there, the woods are totally filled in, and you'll never see this thing from a roadway or even the church. So the only one that's going to see it's that guy right next door over there, and he'd have to be driving up his driveway. So,
How did you pick that particular spot in yellow? Was there a rationale for that particular
it's
spot?
flat.
It's flat.
It's flat. That whole side yard for about, 150 feet lengthways, north to south, and probably 75, 80 feet east to west is flat. It used to be a big garden, but now it just gets run over with a lawnmower about twice a week.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the reasoning behind the whole deal.
You don't have detailed construction plans yet. Who are you planning to use for the construction of it? Do it yourself?
I've got the backhoe, I got the Bobcat, I've got the truck, I've got the know-how to do the concrete. I got a friend of mine that's in the township that does concrete work. So it would be about maybe a 30 by 12 pad. The reason I don't want to just sit it on grass, I don't like moisture comes up underneath these units, and you get rust and deterioration. And I wouldn't even want it sitting on gravel. And I work with blacktop. I'm all for Barrett paving. So it would be a hard surface, and I don't want blacktop in the front yard, but concrete wouldn't be an eyesore to me.
Allison, do you mind bringing up the picture again,
Which,
the aerial?
See that spot right in the middle of that driveway? That's a big Colorado blue spruce, and it'd be off to the back of that.
And so my question for you was going to be, none of the existing trees come down, or none of
No,
this
no.
at all? It's all in the open area?
Oh, no. I've only taken one tree down on that property, and it was an ash.
It looks, the back of that, looking at that photo, looks like it's fairly heavily wooded right behind the
We-
house. Is that true?
We have, there's a huge maple tree, and then the one tree to the east is on it looks like it's on our property, but it actually belongs to the new Foxbrook, and they're putting a berm in there in their catch basin, and they said they're going to leave that. To the west, we've got a plum tree and another huge maple. And where that driveway comes back to the end of the house, that actually drops off down over the hill to a driveway going to our shed down there, is about a 15-foot drop.
Oh.
And there's a drive that comes out of there, but it's just at the shed, and then the rest of it's just grass. So, but behind the house is, it is heavily wooded, and they took all that vegetation out of there. It was wild pear trees and 1 million starlings. So I don't know where they went, but I hope they went someplace.
Missed them, probably.
Is this green line of trees that looks like it's on your neighbor's property to the right, there looks like there seems to be a screen of evergreens, is that
Yes.
true?
Yes.
Can you describe what those are?
Those are white pine, I think that's what, the Ted's tree line. What kind of trees are those?
I think he dug them up from someplace out in the woods, because they're just that wild evergreens.
There's one Colorado spruce in there, and then on our back corner of our property there, we got 3 Colorado spruce on the corner. But that line is his, and his idea that down by the road was his too, but
Is your backyard screened from your neighbor's house to the east based on those evergreens and what you have planted in the backyard?
yes,
Okay.
they'll stand 40 feet tall.
Okay.
And when he found out the property line was wrong and he got all upset, he took it out on his trees, and he cut all the lower branches off.
Of that line that I was just
Yep.
referring to?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, there was branches all the way to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So he went nutso and cut them all off. I mean, it just seems, that was silly.
You mentioned planting more evergreens around this pad. I don't see anything reflected on the
I
plan here.
haven't even
What you're thinking there.
went to that. It's gonna be just green evergreen trees like spruce or something like that around the pad. Basically in time, they'll screen everything. And like I say, it won't even be stored there in the wintertime. It'll be at my house, where I have a proper garage and everything else. So this is just summertime where you use it a lot, you're in and out, in and out, in and out. And it gets kind of a hassle over at my house, because I've got a large truck, and that's in and out all the time, and that backhoe, and it's not something you really want to be dodging over there. So with all this property sitting here, like I say, that one Colorado spruce is about, I'd say it's 40, 50 feet tall, and probably 30 feet, 40 feet across the bottom. So Allison came up there, and did you come up there, or yeah?
Yes, sir.
And saw, I showed you what we were doing, where we were going, and that's as best as I can tell you about it.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Advance them all? Thank you very much.
Okay.
Anybody else like to speak? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing on this case. Just for your information, what we do now is that the public hearing part, the part that you're allowed to speak at, is closed, and you'll hear us deliberate among ourselves as we make a decision about this. This being the only case tonight, we can do that right now. Right?
Sure.
Please come back up to the microphone now.
About your sign over there. Somebody will come pick it up. Somebody threw it in the creek, and I got down and got it out, straightened the leg back on it, and put it back up there.
Thank you. It saved Allison from going down into the creek.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, I don't know.
Might have
Somebody had
washed
to do
away
that.
after today.
We didn't like the township. Allison will get that sign tomorrow.
Tomorrow, Jim will.
They'll get it.
We'll make the co-op do it.
Send it go.
We have an idea who did it, but we're not sure.
Sure.
Thank you. Gentlemen, to discuss this case,
I had a follow-up question for Allison, and speaking of the drive to the pad, you were clear with us that the pad needs to be a paved surface, dust-free. What about getting to the pad?
That would also need to be.
That would also need to be. Okay.
unless we
Right.
prove something different.
Now, the staff report said it's not visible from adjacent properties, but obviously it is visible from the one
From that,
property,
mhm.
right?
I did want to look at this second paragraph here of this communication, because it does talk about members of the Township Zoning Commission. Are there other large vehicles parked in the front yard?
No,
Okay. Are there other vehicles that are parked in the side yard?
there is a pickup truck.
Pickup
but-
truck?
Yeah.
Okay.
What is this letter referring to about the zoning commission and?
Right.
Maybe it's irrelevant, although it was, this person who submitted it thought it was relevant, but is there any history of these properties before this board that has any bearing on this?
Before Board of Zoning Appeals, no, and before
Okay.
Zoning Commission,
All
no.
right.
There have been a number of neighbor disputes, just kind of back and forth again over the property line, over previously existing equipment and things like that, but there are no open violations at this time.
Okay.
So as far as you know, the zoning board, the zoning appeals, zoning commission haven't been involved. There may have
No.
been zoning staff, inspector,
I
and
It
zoning
would have been
inspector
Barb, yeah.
involved. Okay,
Barb,
thanks.
okay.
I also like, I'm sorry,
Go
Fred.
ahead, Brian.
I just want to point out, again, since we're discussing the letter, there's a comment about feel our vote against this ordinance would mean the same whether we're here or not. I've circled a number of things in the letter that I have questions about that would have been nice to
Helpful,
ask, so I'd
sure.
just like to put that on the record.
Well, a further question on the communication itself. There is no sworn testimony that this has been given to us. What's the trail of this, and what's its standing in our considerations?
We do accept written testimony.
We do?
Yes.
Okay. And this was indeed true testimony from
This is, yes,
the
what was
next door,
submitted to us.
from the
Mhm.
next door neighbor there? Okay. And even though we may have questions about details in it, we've got to take it for what it is and go with it.
Yep.
Okay?
Although there's some comments on there, I think as Mr. Sanders was pointing out, it's like certain allegations about the zoning department, for example, that
Correct.
I'm not sure I'm willing to accept as true without, I'm just not, on its face, I'm not saying it's not true or true, I just can't tell. and-
Right, if we can't establish that we're confident of its accuracy, as Brian pointed out, then we can take that into
Yeah, in my mind, it asks it brings up questions that I have that can't be addressed.
All right, based on what we've got, thoughts on this one?
Alice, can you go back to the topographical drawing? Yeah. I guess I'll give my initial take, and then you guys can chew it up or agree or disagree or whatever you like to do. As the testimony was given, the reason for the ordinance in the township is predominantly because we are a suburban setting, if you will. So for obvious reasons, in a neighborhood setting, you don't want an RV parked in a driveway or in a front yard or on a street for extended periods of time. In this case, it's not a suburban setting, or neighborhood setting, I should say. It does appear to me, based on this drawing, that I'll say less people would see it, significantly less people would see it, based on this drawing, in the proposed location versus putting it in the backyard. So my initial take is that it is not a substantial variance. I guess that's as far as I've gotten right now, but that's my first swing at it.
Yeah, I'd agree with those observations, definitely. I'd agree with what Mr. Sanders says. And I would also add, as the applicant pointed out, he didn't say it in so many words, it kind of makes some sense because of this size of this lot, the space, and its, I'm going to say generally secluded nature, that it makes some sense to use that space more effectively rather than, as you just look at his site plan, trying to jam it in the back there. But that's not really one of our considerations. So what I also gathered from the testimony is I did hear some things that checkmarked in my mind some elements of hardship that would apply to this, and that's what we tend to look at. And a couple of them were, they do have some mature vegetation back there. We see it on the site plan. We heard the testimony of it, that I think makes that less than optimal to try and store this vehicle back there where it otherwise normally would go. And there's also some testimony about some fairly severe topo back there, which I would venture to guess would add some difficulty to parking the RV back there. So I did hear what some items that sounded like reasonableness and some hardship as well going on there.
Other thoughts? Fred or Steve?
Yeah, I'm troubled with this one going either way, actually. There are some thoughts, I would say. We've got the regulations this way. There's nothing substantial, especially not hearing at all from the builder, that is an extraordinary negative by staying within the zoning resolution. On the other hand, I can see the possible benefits of putting it in the front yard there, but if we did that, if we agreed with that, I would want to see plans, much more specific plans, including the driveway and the pad, and a landscape plan that was suitable to staff before we actually proceed with something like this. So, yeah, I've got pluses and minuses on both sides.
Steve?
Yeah, and I echo what Mr. Hayes has said here, and my line of questioning earlier was regarding the rear yard and the actual screening of it from the neighbor, in that could the zoning code be followed, the recreational vehicle be put into the rear yard and it'd be adequately screened because of vegetation, and it seemed like it was. So I am in agreement that I would like to see more of what the plan is, how it's developed, that if we were to put it into the front yard, which I think makes a lot of sense here, you know, what's the surface, what are the dimensions, locations, you know, what are being considered for landscaping to screen it from view, and I would certainly like to see that. I've got some evergreens in my backyard that have just taken forever to grow, so, you know, I wouldn't want to see something here that's going to take 5 or 10 years to grow and completely screen out. So I'd like to see that sooner than later. So I'm in agreement that I'd like to see, I'm on the fence. I'd like to see more of what's being proposed.
Yeah, to me, what does seem to be, there are two items that I find important. I think the potential for screening around it is important. And I think we probably need to understand a little better how the gravel driveway to be overgrown to become grass will ultimately work. I mean, there's something to be said about minimizing the amount of pavement in this kind of a situation. It'll look nicer and all those kinds of things, less runoff. But I'm not sure that was as clearly articulated as part of the variance that we were going to be doing.
And in fact, as Allison stated, I think, that would be unacceptable.
Unless we somehow included it as a part of the variance, which it's not, almost not written to do that yet, correct?
Well, yeah, talking about the driveway, I guess my view is, I hear the ideas of the more green space and et cetera, but generally speaking, I like the idea of just having a plain old regular paved driveway. The pad's going to be paved, as was the testimony, so I would be inclined to see just a regular driveway there, I think, would be, I just think it would be better and consistent with the code.
Is the current driveway bituminous asphalt? Yeah, so the approach to it could certainly be bituminous and then the pad made out of concrete.
It's concrete.
Well, it sounds like I mean, is there a feeling that you want some more, an additional submission?
I do.
Yes.
I'd like to see this, I'd like to see a more definitive proposal from the applicant as to what, I mean, we've had testimony that it's either going to be this or that. We've had some discussion up here about what we think is appropriate. And then we're saying about a landscaping plan and some other things, and I certainly think that the applicant should come forth with a revised proposal.
Yeah, I think.
It's not up to us to kind of figure that part out.
I think there's probably two options. I mean, if we want to move forward with it, we're going to have to put our own plans together, is what we want to see out there, and I'd rather the homeowner come forward with some specific plans rather than we putting restrictions on a variance and try and create something. I think that's logical.
So if, Brian, would you,
That'd be fine, that'd be helpful.
I think to do that, we probably would need a motion to,
Table?
no, I would say a motion to reopen the case, to request additional public testimony at the next meeting, and we can specify what we want, assuming that when you get it, you want the opportunity to ask the applicant questions about what you get. I mean, we can reopen the case and just ask for the information to be submitted without having it as public back and forth, but I think we want the back and forth. Don't
Yeah,
we don't-
yeah, I think so.
Don't you think you want the ability to ask the applicant questions about what he,
Yeah, do you want to reopen it now, tonight, or do you want to table it tonight with stipulations and then reopen it
yeah,
when we get
well,
together?
we would make a motion tonight to, I don't know if table's the right word, to continue the case till next month.
Okay,
At which point we will request, we can request tonight the specific information that we want, and they can come back next month and give us the information, hopefully, for that. Although, let me ask a question about next month. Is that really January 2nd?
Unless you all want to move it now.
We'll talk about that afterwards, 'cause I know I'm not in town, but, is that the feeling? If so,
Yes.
I'm in agreement with that, yes.
I'll entertain a motion to do that. Motion to continue the case, reopen it as a public hearing next month with specific information.
Okay, I'll make that motion as, just steal what Mr. Overschmidt said, but also, and then you all chime in if, with the stipulation that we'd like to see a more detailed site plan showing the detail and composition of the driveway access to the proposed pad, precision as to where the pad is going to be relative to the existing blue spruce tree that is out there now, and also on the drawing, demonstrating the plantings that you are proposing to put around the pad with some specificity as to the type of evergreen, the height of evergreen, that sort of thing,
And the size of the pad.
I was gonna, yep.
and the size of the pad.
A full set of drawings, specifications,
Right.
construction specifications.
And then, so if we can have that motion, we have a second on that?
second.
And if I could just add, we'd like to have that submitted sometime in advance of the, at least a week in advance of the scheduled hearing, so that we can have that distributed by staff.
You guys open the week before?
Yes.
So,
Then the only other question is whether we reopen any portion of it tonight in case the applicant has questions about what we want.
well, I think that would be a good
Fair to
idea.
do that as well.
Sure.
Make that motion as well.
So, would you like to act on the first motion, or you want me to just add
Just
that?
amend it.
And I'll amend that, if we could have a brief reopening of the session, should the applicant have some questions on what he just heard there.
All right,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Would the applicant like to ask any questions about what we're looking for?
First of all, 17th of this month, I'm getting my knee replaced, so maybe getting back here next month, I don't know yet. The other thing is,
I had it done 2 years ago. You're not going to be back here on that.
I got one, I just gotta get the other one. I'm falling apart. The way this would play out is if I put a pad back there of approximately 12 to 15 wide and 30 long and put a concrete drive to it, no matter what I plant, this guy's gonna see the front of it. I'm telling you now that he's gonna raise hell. I mean, that's his nature.
Well, then I would ask, what can you do to screen it from him? That is, not necessarily in front of the vehicle, but on the opposite side of the driveway?
There's a
You know, that
possibility.
you could put some screening there, so there's a lot of opportunity here.
The biggest thing you have to watch out with this size of vehicle is turning it around. When it's all hooked together, you're talking something in the neighborhood of 55 feet. And
I've done it, I understand.
So I drive a truck all the time, and I can handle this, but I have to keep some room so I'm not tearing things up. But that, I can definitely screen the side, and it could be screened, a couple Colorado spruce, which they do grow fast. We put a couple out in front, and one of them's already about 15 feet tall, and that's been within the last 5 years. But as far as a concrete driveway to it, that's not a big problem either. I mean,
Or blacktop, whatever.
I don't like blacktop. I haul it all the time. Blacktop is great, but it tracks in the house terrible. So you won't see any blacktop where I'm working around.
All right, so if you could get those together, and if it is, this is more of a next spring project for you?
Absolutely.
So
I'm gonna
if
be
we,
down
if
for
we
the
need to
winter.
do this in February
Sure.
instead of January, that,
That'll be
Of course.
Because I don't know, like I say, I don't know what I'm going to be in.
you'll be on drugs, I know that.
And you know, I just add this, if you put your drawing together and you're like, well, I think maybe this is it. The staff is really helpful in, Allison has heard a lot from this board, and she might, you know, it might be something you can say, is this going along the right lines? And I think that can help you prepare a really good
She's
site.
helped me quite a bit already.
Has she? Okay, good, good.
I mean, if she's, I could put a building up, as long as I put a door. I mean, to cover this thing up. It seems something that I really don't need. I don't need a building. This thing's big enough anyhow.
Yeah. Well, as you think about the size of this thing and the difficulty of handling it, is your thought that you'll drive it up the driveway and then back into the pad?
Doesn't make any difference. I've backed in from Clough Pike already. I mean, people look at me like, oh, we're gonna be waiting here a while. Well, it doesn't happen. I've driven tractor trailers for 40 years.
So you'd back it up into it?
Either way, if it's wet, I back up from Clough Pike. If it's dry, I pull up there and turn it around in that grass. So it's either way.
Pardon me. When we stop,
Go up the microphone so all our friends out on TV land
Public
can
access.
hear you.
when we stop on Clough Pike and he gets it situated to back it up, I'm closing my eyes and the traffic is stopped and we're up there in no time flat. I cannot believe it. That's it.
For me, it's not a big deal which way I bring it in, put it out, or whatever. I just want a place so I don't have to set it up by the house and block everything up. So it's just, in that backyard, like you were saying, those are great big trees. I mean, we're not talking your little tiny, we're talking, take 3 men to go around them. So they're big maple trees.
Yeah, my only thought was the approach to the pad there need not be perpendicular off the existing driveway. It could be at a diagonal.
I can get it anyway.
Yeah.
Tell me how you want it, I'll do it.
All right, so we'll continue this one, and we'll let the applicant and the staff discuss when a good time to reconsider it is, depending on your schedules. Like I said, it sounds like it's a spring project, so we've got a little time on it. All right?
Good move.
A discussion on bylaws.
Yes.
It seems to me that Mr. Hayes has done such a marvelous job
Very detailed.
of going through all his comments this morning.
You guys don't have to hang out. You're free to go.
Yeah, thanks.
Appreciate you listening.
Thanks.
This will be fun.
All right, so we've got a redraft that reflects the variety of comments received over a variety of months.
Yes.
And then we have a clean copy that also reflects the most recent changes to the extent they were able to be made
Yes.
in reaction to Mr. Hayes' list
And
of
some
questions.
of them, I'd love to be able to change it and have it read a little nicer, but
But
it's the
which
kind of thing that
statute? Yeah.
we take it straight from ORC, and if we start fiddling with it, who knows?
And then how, at this point, is our legal counsel, is Gary comfortable with this? The way it reads now? And now I guess it's just a question of whether others on the board have any questions or whether we are comfortable with it.
Or if anyone's caught anything else, or,
I had one comment, but it was on Mr. Hayes's remarks on page 4 about that paragraph 5 was kind of misplaced.
Yes.
Sounds like you fixed
yep,
that.
and we
That's
adjusted
fixed.
that.
So, we had this draft and the clean draft, and then we had Mr. Hayes's remarks, which you addressed to a large degree or gave explanatory remarks. Did I miss it? Did we get another
There
draft
should have been
out after
one
that?
attached to that, that
there
had
That was a clean one.
a clean one,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
that
We
incorporated,
didn't get a red line.
no.
Another
Okay,
red line.
okay, I missed that one, but there is one. Okay.
I'll make one point, and it's as much for, Brian's information as well. Fred raised questions about the property maintenance code and the reference to it, and I think it was at one of the meetings early meetings we had, or it was one of the comments I gave Gary, that I thought there should be a reference in our bylaws to the property maintenance code. I don't think you guys were on when the trustees adopted the property maintenance code, and they needed to have somebody to appeal to before it goes to the
Okay.
court. And so we're the parties designated
Okay.
to do that.
It's never happened,
It's never
but it's
happened.
you.
That would happen.
Yes. And now, is it pointed our direction in any other place, or is it our bylaws?
It's
the only
within the
place?
property maintenance code
The code-
itself
The code itself.
designates
Okay.
the Board of Zoning Appeals,
Okay.
yes. And I have spoken with Tom Caruso, who's our enforcer of the property maintenance code, and he's more than happy to set up the training session with you guys, so we'll start to work out when that scheduling can happen.
Because with the changeover, because we did that when the property maintenance code was adopted, but I don't know if you were probably here. I think Brian and I were probably the only two at that meeting, who were still on the board, who were at that meeting when they explained the code and situations. But I just thought that if we're updating the bylaws, we ought to at least reference the fact that we're going to be doing that as well.
It's in there,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it is a good idea, though,
Yeah.
because before you know it, as soon as we say we've never had one.
One will come
Right,
up.
of course.
Yep.
A question on the terminology, though. You said that the title is the first 2 lines, and that didn't include bylaws.
Bylaws is kind of our shortened slang for it, I guess, but the full title is the Organization, Procedures, Rules, and Regulations.
Okay. So the real title is those first 2 lines?
Yes.
Scratch bylaws?
Right,
Why don't we scratch bylaws?
See what it means on the
yeah,
cover
that's
sheet.
fine. All of the footers in it they stop after regulations.
Right, that's fine.
Procedures, rules, and regulations, yeah. Yep.
Any other questions on this much improved?
The only other question that I have is, where do we document the other things that are not documented in here? And
The
that was the other
script-
question that I was reading.
Yeah, that script that Rick reads before every meeting is something Gary has written for Board of Zoning Appeals, and then there's a separate version that's a little tweaked for Zoning Commission, since most of what Zoning Commission does is not a public hearing. And that's where we talk about the swearing in. Usually, if we have a big crowd, he'll say something about how long people have. They can have longer if we request it, things like,
So that is an official document that exists someplace?
yes, it's just separate from the bylaws.
Okay?
But, so it's not the bylaws, it's what we've kind of adopted, I guess, as a supplemental
Right.
procedure.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Okay,
That's
yeah.
good. But
it's-
at least it formally exists someplace.
It does exist.
Whoever gets this chair starting next month will find us sitting here when they.
Okay. And similarly, the rules that we use to actually execute against these, like the rules of notice and the parties in interest, surely we don't wait for the courts to tell us who the parties in interest are
No,
all the
but we
time.
are, Gary recommended that we keep that language, because as soon as we say we notify property owners within 200 feet, and we get something like Martin Marietta come back, we would be doing something that's not in our bylaws, because we notified more than people within 200 feet. So he said, keep it loose and vague, keep it as parties of interest, because that'll cover what we do per the zoning resolution, which is people within 200 feet. And then it'll also cover, since it says as according to the law as opposed to according to the zoning resolution. So if we get some kind of court decision that trumps the zoning resolution, then that's what we go according to.
And the zoning resolution does specify the parties within 200 feet?
Yes.
Uh-huh, okay. I missed that. All right, good.
Any other questions? Are we comfortable with adopting it at this point, or do people need any further opportunity to read?
Nope.
Good to go.
You know, Mr. Hayes, I'd probably entertain, I'm sorry. I cut you
I
off.
was just going to say, I'll let you go ahead. You go right ahead.
I think Mr. Hayes deserves the opportunity to make a motion to
I
approve.
think you
it.
have to do it.
Well, what I was going to say is it just was so helpful to have Mr. Hayes really dig into it. And I'd say also, I'd give it to Mr. Johnson as well, that just took a little extra effort to improve wording, and it turned out to be a really nice and readable document. I wouldn't be surprised if other places would look to this as a good
Are
one.
you gonna steal it now?
I am probably, yes.
I would advise improving it in a couple of spots. It's still unreadable and ununderstandable in a couple of spots.
That's all that ORC stuff.
That's right.
Jeez. But, Mr. Chairman, I move that this board approve the draft of the clean copy of the draft of the Anderson Township Board of Zoning Appeals Organization Procedures, Rules, and Regulations as submitted with the deletion of the word bylaws.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Nope.
Betty, on this one, we have a motion and a second. Could you call the roll, please?
Brian Ellis.
Aye.
Steve Haver.
Aye.
Fred Hayes.
Aye?
Brian Sanders.
Aye.
Rick Oversmith.
Aye.
Sweet. All right.
No further business?
That's it.
Oh, January meeting,
January meeting, Merry Christmas, things like that.
January 2.
We can check our event calendar for this room and make sure, but we can always push it to the following week or something.
Well, if I'm the one with a problem, that's,
I can go either the 2nd or the 9th. Doesn't matter to me.
Again, I'm just an alternate, but I could do the 2nd, not the 9th.
That's helpful if somebody else is out.
because I think that the first order of business is election of new officers.
Yes.
Right.
But if you're not here, they can just nominate you without you know.
You know, we
Then
did
you
that.
get it again.
We did that to Bruce Branstetter one year.
So if you don't want to be nominated, you just don't show up. Well, we may be scheduling it to April or May. I'm good either one.
Well, then, stick to the second.
Okay,
on the
we'll
second.
stick with the
If
second.
you guys are good, stick to the second.
Sadly, yes.
And we'll miss you.
I think you'll miss me. I hope you'll miss me.
What are your preferences?
Well,
If you were here, how would
Well, I
you-
think the past, we've rotated the officer's position, and I'm more than happy to rotate down to that end of the table. But I don't feel strongly about it one way or the other.
If there's no cases, will we definitely have a meeting to do this in January regardless of the
No.
caseload? So we only
We
get
wait.
together if there's a case?
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense, yeah. Okay.
And if Mr. Childs can't do it in January and we don't get any new applications, then we won't meet in
Gotcha.
January.
Okay.
Okay.
If he gets the right doctor, he'll be in here. I just had my knee replaced.
I'll tell you what,
Wow.
I was moving around, but I sure wasn't feeling great. Yeah, that would be 2.5 weeks for him.
No wonder he had so much time to go through those bylaws.
All right.
And I have
Happy New
something
Year.
there in my head
Anything else?
spinning anyhow.
Merry Christmas.
Adjourn, Merry Christmas,
No,
happy
actually,
holidays,
I do
everybody,
have
we're
a
adjourned.
passion.